Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. So, today we're going to be talking about financial literacy and we're going to jump right into it. And let me start with something most people don't expect to hear. Financial literacy is not a fast track to being rich. I'm sorry. I don't know who told you that. Maybe some guru who charged you quite a bit of money for their class, but that is not the case. It's not about speed. Because the real purpose of financial literacy is stability. Is learning how to manage what you already have. So when opportunity shows up, whether that's a raise, a business idea, or even buying some real estate, you don't blow it. You don't sabotage it. And you're not scared of it. I see this all the time in real life. Someone thinks their biggest issue is income. They tell themselves, if I just made more money, everything will be different. Everything will be better. Now, we could always make more money, but it doesn't change our habits, because in a lot of those situations, those individuals got raises, they got better jobs, they worked more overtime, and somehow they were still stressed. They had the same problem. They just had bigger numbers attached to it. That's usually when it clicks. See, money doesn't fix behavior. It exposes it. So today I want to talk you through the financial literacy in the way that I explain it to people one-on-one. And it's not a theory. It's not hype. This is specifically a set of principles that build a very strong foundation. Okay. So going right into this, that's the whole purpose of financial literacy. You don't just have it just to say you have it. You have it to actually use it so you can build a strong financial foundation. And like I said, I'm going to help you do that today. And today I'm going to provide you with 5 core skills. 5 of them. And I want you to write them down either in pen and pad, paper, and your iPad or your Android phone. Those 5 core principles. The first one is going to be budgeting and spending. The second one is going to be savings and emergency funds. The third one is going to be debt management. The fourth is going to be credit and credit scores. And the fifth is going to be investing. Because once you learn all these things, if you listen for the entire video, this is going to help you create stability first, but then growing your wealth over time second. And that's what we all want to do. Okay. So before I get into the 5 core components, let me start off with a few points. And the first point, like I said earlier, financial literacy is not about riches. It's about control. That's where it starts. So according to the Federal Reserve, a significant percentage of Americans, even high earners, report living paycheck to paycheck. You see, that tells us something very, very important. And that is income doesn't fix decisions. You see, financial literacy gives you awareness. It helps you know where your money goes, why it's going there, and also why the decisions that you make matter. Because the choices that we're making today, they don't just affect us today. They affect us tomorrow, next week, next month, and next year. So once you have awareness, that's when you gain control. That control is what creates peace. So all this anxiety that a lot of people who struggle financially feel, all this stress, you don't have to deal with that, because when you have that peace, that's what's going to allow you to grow. Having that mindset, being able to set that foundation. Okay, so now we're going to get a little bit more practical. So moving on to my next major point. Why is it that more money doesn't automatically, change decision making? The reason is there's a concept called lifestyle inflation. And it's one of the biggest reasons why people feel financially stuck, even though they've gotten, increased salaries or making more money. And that is that as income rises, spending rises with it. It's as simple as that. So someone making $40,000 a year who hasn't learned discipline, they're not going to magically become disciplined and wise when they make $100,000 a year. That's usually just an upgrade of the same bad habits. So you had a Honda before, now you got a Mercedes. You had a sedan before, now you got you a SUV. So all that is just bigger problems, bigger stress. You see, the purpose of financial literacy is to interrupt that cycle before the income changes, so we can address these things and solve it. So when the new additional money comes and the new opportunities come, we are ready for it. And we can use those opportunities to not blow it or give us stress and heart attacks, but to change our lives for the better. So now we're going to transition to more technical things. See, this is shifting the mindset to mechanics, because up to this point, everything we've talked about has been mainly about money. Now, on this technical side, we're going to talk about things you can practically and realistically do that are going to give you results. Now, these are going to be the 5 components that I discussed earlier. And I specifically am focusing on people who want to be able to buy a home, and not just dreaming it. I'm talking about putting a plan together like, hey, this is what I plan to do. This is what I want to do. And I'm going to do whatever I need to do to put myself in a position to be able to accomplish this. So during this part of the video, I want everyone to grab either a pen, a paper, pad, your iPhone, your Android, and start writing these components down. Because like I said, they're going to be extremely important. First core component, budgeting and spending. So let's start out, because I learned some people don't even know what a budget is. So if you're asking what's a budget, I will tell you. So a budget is a tool for managing your income, and not just your income, but also your expenses and other financial goals like savings, debt payments, and it specifically manages those things over a specific period of time. And we need to get comfortable with budgets, because budgets are not about punishment. It's about alignment. Because data consistently shows that people who track their spending, even loosely, they save more money. They carry less debt. And it's not because they are perfect. It's literally because they have changed their behavior. So I'm about to give you some practical steps that you can take to help you make a great budget. So number 1, and I hope you're writing and tracking this. Okay. You're going to start by tracking your expenses for 30 days. And when you do this, there's not going to be any judgment, because you're probably going to see some things and you're like, oh, wow, I didn't even know I was spending that much money there. And that's fine. But the first step is, hey, we got to track to see where our money's going. So once we track those expenses for 30 days, now we're going to separate the needs from the wants. So a lot of people confuse needs and wants. So I'm going to make it very simple. You ask yourself, is this essential for my survival? And if the answer is yes, it's a need. If the answer is no, it's a want. So once you have that established, now you're going to decide where your money should go, which it should be directed towards the needs. And when you're deciding where you're going to spend your money, you have to make sure you build a margin. Now, I'm going to take some time to explain what I mean by margin, because it's something else people may not understand. So let's say, for an example, I get $2,500 a month. And when I'm making my budget, to have margin, I don't want to spend the entire or allocate the entire $2,500. I'm depending on where I live or my specific set of circumstances. I may want to say, you know what? I want to have a 20% margin. So, okay, my $2,500, I'm going to set $500 to the side. I'm not going to allocate $500. I'm going to allocate this $2,000, but I'm going to set that $500 aside so I can have some margin, just in case if something pop up that I didn't, emergency or something like that, I have that there. Okay. Now, this is important because, like I said, a budget's job is simple. It's to tell you where your money is going, because you would want to know where your money is going instead of wondering, oh, where it went. So now we go into the next core component. And again, these are going to build on top of each other. So now we're moving into the saving and emergency fund. So here's one stat I always come back to. Okay. The Federal Reserve data shows that many Americans cannot cover a $400 emergency without borrowing. Now, don't feel bad because that's not a moral failure. That's a foundational issue. See, emergency savings aren't about getting ahead. You have an emergency savings so you don't fall behind. So the first step, practical, realistic, we're going to start with a goal of saving $1,000. Okay. And this is important. And this is why I said these components are going to build on each other, because you can't save $1,000 without first knowing where your money is going. So that's why the budget, that's going to be step one. So now as we got our budget down and we're allocating where our money goes, and now we're going to save that $1,000 because now we have control over where our money is going. And then once we have that $1,000, okay, that's good. That's the emergency. Okay, I need this before I die. Now we're going to move over to, okay, we got our $1,000. Let's go 3 to 6 months of essential expenses. Remember, essential. Is this needed for your survival? Not going shopping. Okay, so we got our $1,000 and now we've saved even more. We saved up 6 months of essential expenses. We're going to make sure we keep that emergency fund liquid, basically liquid and boring, just in case, because again, it's an emergency fund. So if we don't need it, great, it's there. But if we do need it, it's readily accessible. Okay, because we can automate small, consistent deposits. Savings, all it does is buy time. And it also gives you options. So it's extremely important. So now we got our budget. We got our emergency fund, and we got our 6 months of essential expenses. Now we're going to deal with the debt management. And we have to understand this, because a lot of people are going to lie to you and sell you that debt is evil. No, debt is not evil, but misunderstanding it is incredibly expensive and detrimental. You see, high interest consumer debt works against you, and make no mistake about it. You are either benefiting from interest, where you're earning interest on your money, or it's hurting you, where you're paying interest. There is no middle ground. So you have to make sure that you're structured and you're intentional with your debt. So the first step is list all your debts with the balances and the interest rates. Okay. Now you want to eliminate the high interest debt aggressively. We got to stop with the minimum payments. Like, all right, I made my minimum payment. Now let me go, spend my money. No, we got to be intentional with our decisions. Okay. And then while we're taking care of this debt, we're not going to stack any new debt on top of this. We're not going to get any new debt until we clean up the old debt. Once we get it to a position that's good, now it's like, okay, we can move forward. Okay. So we have our budget. We got our emergency fund. Now we taking care of the debt. We knocking that out. So now we're moving into that more stable role. The fourth component is going to be credit and credit scores. Oh my goodness. This one is extremely important. Well, all of these are extremely important, but credit, a lot of people treat that emotionally. Don't do that. Credit is not emotional. It's just a tool. It's a very important tool, because credit scores, they can impact a lot of things in your life. I'm talking about interest rates, insurance, but I'm also talking about being able to find housing, being able to get a job. You see, if you got bad credit, not only it can stop you from finding a place to rent and being able to buy, you may not even be able to get hired. Because some jobs, depending on, the field it's in, you have to have a certain type of credit score. You see, according to FICO data, higher credit scores, they directly correlate to lower borrowing costs over time. And what is that going to do? That's going to save us money. So here are some practical steps that you can take that are going to raise your credit score and keep your credit score high. Number one, pay everything on time. This is going to be the biggest factor, because late payments are going to tank your credit. Now, I always recommend, if you can, pay your balances off full. I have probably like 30 credit cards. I pay my balances off full, and I get 2% on everything I buy. So when I pay my electricity bill with my credit card, the credit card is basically paying me to use it. And if you can't pay your balances off in full, you want to keep it under 10%. This best. This is optimal. If you can keep it under 10%, great. But if you can't, you definitely want to keep it under 30% because that's crucial. Okay, so while we're doing that, we want to make sure we don't have any unnecessary hard inquiries. And this is important because we're not just applying for credit cards just to be doing it. Because when you have a whole bunch of inquiries, it gives a signal to the creditors that you're unstable. And, with unstable people, they get denied and they also get charged higher interest. Okay, so we don't want to just be applying for credit cards all willy-nilly with a whole bunch of inquiries on a credit report. So manage that. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to check our credit regularly. And I mean regularly. 9 times out of 10, most credit cards now, they allow you to they monitor your credit for you for free. Let's use that. So also, by doing this allows us to make sure that the stuff on our credit report is accurate. And if it's not accurate, if there's a mistake, we're going to dispute that and get that corrected. Okay. And also, we are entitled to 3 free credit reports every single year. And these are the full 30-page credit reports. So what I do, I make sure I get my free credit report from Experian. I get my free credit report from Equifax, and I get my free credit report from TransUnion every single year. They mail me the stack with like 30 pages. Now, my credit report I got my first credit card at 18, so we going on a long history of credit. But I do that to make sure that I'm informed on what's on my credit report, specifically from the bureaus. Okay, so your credit and credit scores. Now, they are not going to define your worth, but I'm gonna tell you right now, they will define your access. And this is extremely unfortunate, but this is the world we live in. Now, I listen to a lot of John Hopes Bryant's videos, and he specifically spoke about credit and credit scores. And he said something that blew my mind. And this was extremely uncomfortable for me to hear. But at the same time, it was extremely necessary for me to hear. Because although this may not affect me, I know people, I have family members who it does affect. And he said this: every problem you can imagine in America is found in a 500 credit score neighborhood. And like I said, when he said that, it blew my mind. And then he said, I'm going to say it again for everyone in the back. Every problem in America, whether black and brown and urban communities, or even pure poor white rural communities, every problem in America is found in a 500 credit score neighborhood. And I'm sitting there shocked, and I'm just like, yo, that's crazy. But when I start thinking about it, I'm like, wait, that makes sense. And then he went on and said, okay, well, you may ask, well, what is that? What's found in a 500 credit score neighborhood? And then he just started listing them. He's like, well, you got the check cashing business next to the rent to own store, next to the title lending store, next to the pawn shop, next to the liquor store. And then there's a church down the street where everyone goes because that's the neighborhood therapist. And they're going to help, make sure you don't go crazy. And I'm sitting there stunned, and I'm just like, yo, that literally was my neighborhood growing up. Those were my projects. And he ended it by saying, companies literally are target marketing specifically to these 500 credit score neighborhoods because they are trying to exploit and take advantage of you. When he said that, that was basically a mic drop moment for me. It is extremely important that we understand these components because we are going to need these components to improve our circumstances. So now we on to the 5th component, and this is the final component, and that is investing. And when you think of investing, think of this: patience over perfection. Because I'm going to tell you right now, investing isn't about guessing. It's not. That's gambling. We're not guessing over here. We're doing financial analysis. We are doing these consistently. Because remember, long-term market data shows time and time again that time in the market beats timing the market. People who invest steadily, even in average conditions, they tend to outperform those waiting for the perfect moments. So even if you don't have a lot of money, I tell people very simple instructions. Instead of birthday gifts, buy some stock, buy some bonds, buy into an index fund. Make sure you diversify. Don't have all your money in one stock. So if that stock drops, it basically wipes you out. We're gonna avoid emotional decisions, and we have to do this because there's market volatility all the time. It's normal, but it doesn't have to guarantee failure, because investing turns discipline into growth. But that's only after you have stability. So, in conclusion, guys, financial literacy, it doesn't promise that you're going to get rich fast. Okay? I don't want any of you guys to think that. But what it does promise is that when life changes, when that income grows, or when opportunities appear, or even when challenges hit, you're going to be prepared and not panicked. Okay? So yes, we spoke about the budgeting. We spoke about the savings and the emergency fund. We spoke about making sure we manage the debt intentionally. We spoke about the importance of understanding credit and make sure we use that as a tool. And then we also just now finished speaking about investing, making sure we're doing that patiently and using that wisdom to diversify and taking those small steps, because with compound interest, those small steps are going to add up to very, very big account balances. Okay. So my final thought on this: wealth is not built by shortcuts. It's built by stacking fundamentals quietly, consistently, and confidently. Because once that foundation is solid, that's when growth is possible. So I hope you guys have learned something valuable from this video on financial literacy. Thanks so much for tuning in. Like I said, this information is absolutely vital. And of course, yes, I'm a real estate broker and I would love for you guys to be able to purchase a house. But this is bigger than that. Whether you buy a house or not, this information is absolutely crucial. So if you find value in this information, smash that like button. Subscribe, and also share this content with all your friends, followers, family, because like I said, it's extremely important. And also, you got to remember, you heard it here first. New Texas Realty. Until next time.